Stop me if this sounds familiar. You wake up at 2 in the morning with your heart pounding, and there's this weight on your chest and your mind is racing through 1,000 different scenarios of everything that could go wrong. And you absolutely know that you should go back to sleep because you have to wake up in 4 hours, but you can't. Because now you're anxious about being anxious, and you're calculating how tired you're going to be tomorrow. And that's making you more anxious, and you're stuck in this horrible spiral that just keeps getting worse and worse. And here's the thing that nobody tells you. That spiral, that feeling of being completely trapped inside your own mind, it's not random. It's not just happening to you. It's a specific mechanical process with identifiable parts, and once you understand how it works, once you see the actual mechanism, you can break it. Not manage it, not cope with it, actually break it. And I know you've probably heard that before from a dozen different self-help gurus and meditation apps and therapists, and nothing has actually worked long-term. But what I'm about to show you is different, because I'm not going to give you breathing exercises or positive affirmations or any of that surface-level stuff. I'm going to show you the machine itself, how it operates, why it keeps running, and exactly where to stick the wrench to make it stop. Let me start by telling you what the anxiety loop actually is, because most people don't understand this, and that's why they can't escape it. The anxiety loop is a self-reinforcing cycle that has 3 distinct parts, and each part feeds into the next one, creating this perpetual motion machine of worry and stress. The first part is the trigger. This could be anything. A notification on your phone, a thought that pops into your head, someone cancelling plans, looking at your bank account, thinking about a presentation you have to give, literally anything. The trigger itself isn't the problem. The problem is what happens next. The second part is the anxious thought pattern. Your brain takes that trigger and immediately starts catastrophizing. It starts running simulations of everything that could go wrong. You see an email from your boss, and before you even open it, your brain has already convinced you that you're getting fired, and you won't be able to pay rent, and you'll end up living in your car. That's the thought pattern. But here's where it gets really insidious. The third part is the response, and the response is usually some form of avoidance, distraction, or reassurance seeking. You don't open the email. You scroll through social media to distract yourself. You text your friend asking them if they think you're going to get fired. And here's the thing, that response gives you temporary relief. For a moment, the anxiety lessens. But that temporary relief is exactly what keeps the loop going, because your brain learns that the way to deal with anxiety is to avoid, distract, or seek reassurance. So the next time you feel anxious, your brain automatically does the same thing. And every single time you complete this loop, you make it stronger. Now, most advice about anxiety focuses on managing the symptoms. It tells you to do breathing exercises when you're anxious. It tells you to practice mindfulness. It tells you to challenge your negative thoughts. And look, those things can be helpful in the moment, but they don't break the loop. They're like putting a band-aid on a broken bone. You need to understand why the loop exists in the first place, and that requires us to talk about how your brain actually works. Your brain has this part called the amygdala, which is basically your alarm system. It's constantly scanning your environment for threats. Back when we were living in caves and running from predators, this system was incredibly useful. If you saw a shadow that might be a lion, your amygdala would trigger the fight or flight response, and you'd either run or prepare to fight, and that would save your life. The problem is that your amygdala can't tell the difference between a real physical threat and a perceived psychological threat. It treats an upcoming social event the same way it would treat a lion. It triggers the same physiological response. Your heart rate increases, your breathing gets shallow, stress hormones flood your system, and your thinking becomes more rigid and focused on the threat. This is the anxiety you feel. But here's what's fascinating. Your amygdala learns. It's constantly updating its threat detection system based on your experiences. And every time you respond to anxiety with avoidance or distraction, you're teaching your amygdala that the thing you're anxious about really is dangerous. You're confirming the false alarm. Let me give you an example. Say you're anxious about going to a party. Your amygdala flags the party as a potential threat. You feel anxious, so you decide not to go. You stay home instead. In the moment you feel relief, but what you've just taught your amygdala is that parties are genuinely dangerous because you had to avoid one to feel safe. So next time there's a party, your amygdala is going to sound an even louder alarm because from its perspective it saved you last time by making you anxious enough to avoid the danger. This is how the loop gets stronger. Every avoidance, every distraction, every time you seek reassurance, you're feeding the loop. So how do you break it? This is where everything changes. The way you break the anxiety loop is not by trying to reduce your anxiety. It's by changing your relationship with the anxiety itself. You have to teach your amygdala that anxiety is not dangerous, that the feeling of anxiety, as uncomfortable as it is, cannot actually hurt you. And the only way to teach your amygdala this is through a process called exposure. But not the kind of exposure you might be thinking of. I'm not talking about forcing yourself to do things that terrify you. I'm talking about something much more subtle and much more powerful. You need to start deliberately staying with your anxiety instead of immediately trying to escape it. When you feel that anxious feeling arise, instead of reaching for your phone or seeking reassurance or avoiding whatever triggered it, you sit with it. You feel it fully. You notice where it shows up in your body. Is it tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, tension in your shoulders? You observe it like a scientist observing an experiment. You don't try to make it go away. You don't try to breathe it away or think positive thoughts to neutralize it. You just let it be there, and here's what happens that's absolutely crucial. When you do this, when you sit with the anxiety without responding to it, without feeding the loop, the anxiety will naturally rise, and then it will peak, and then it will start to come down. This is called the anxiety curve, and it happens every single time. Anxiety cannot sustain itself indefinitely. It's physiologically impossible. The stress response is designed to be temporary. Your body releases cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones do their thing. And then your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and brings you back to baseline. But most people never learn this because they never let the curve complete. They interrupt it by avoiding or distracting, and so they never discover that the anxiety would have come down on its own. When you start sitting with your anxiety and allowing it to complete its natural curve, something incredible happens. Your amygdala starts to learn that anxiety isn't actually dangerous. It starts to recalibrate its threat detection system. The first time you do this, it's going to be uncomfortable. The anxiety might feel overwhelming. Your brain is going to scream at you to do something, anything to make it stop. But if you can resist that urge, if you can just observe the anxiety without reacting to it, you'll notice that it does start to decrease. But there's another layer to this that we need to talk about, because sitting with anxiety is only part of the solution. The other part is understanding the stories you tell yourself about your anxiety. Most people have this narrative running in their head that goes something like this: I'm an anxious person. I've always been anxious. Anxiety runs in my family. I can't help it. This is just who I am. And every time you tell yourself this story, you're reinforcing your identity as an anxious person. You're making anxiety part of your self-concept. But here's the truth. You are not an anxious person. You are a person who experiences anxiety. That might seem like a small distinction, but it's actually huge. When you identify as an anxious person, anxiety becomes part of your identity, and your brain will work to maintain that identity, because our brains crave consistency. They want our actions and experiences to match our self-concept. So if you believe you're an anxious person, your brain will actually seek out and amplify anxious thoughts and feelings to maintain that consistency. But when you shift your perspective and see yourself as a person who sometimes experiences anxiety, you create space between you and the anxiety. The anxiety becomes something you experience rather than something you are. This shift in perspective is absolutely critical, and it ties into something called cognitive diffusion, which is a concept from acceptance and commitment therapy. Cognitive diffusion is the practice of separating yourself from your thoughts. Most people are completely fused with their thoughts. When they think a thought, they believe it automatically. If the thought says you're going to fail, they believe they're going to fail. If the thought says something bad is going to happen, they believe something bad is going to happen. But thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are just mental events. They're electrical signals firing in your brain. They're the product of neural patterns that have been reinforced over time. And just because you think something doesn't make it true. When you practice cognitive diffusion, you start to notice your thoughts rather than getting caught up in them. Instead of thinking, I'm going to fail, you notice, I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail. This creates a tiny bit of distance between you and the thought, and in that distance, you have freedom. Let me give you a practical framework for how to actually implement this in your daily life, because I know all of this can sound theoretical. Here's what I want you to start doing. First, become aware of your triggers. Start noticing what situations, thoughts, or events tend to kick off your anxiety loop. Don't judge yourself for having these triggers, just observe them with curiosity. Second, when you notice anxiety starting, pause before you respond. This is the crucial intervention point. This is where you would normally reach for your phone or seek reassurance or avoid whatever is making you anxious. Instead, just pause. Take a moment. Third, name what you're feeling. Say to yourself, silently or out loud, I'm feeling anxious right now, I'm noticing anxiety. This simple act of naming the emotion helps create that separation between you and the emotion. Fourth, locate the anxiety in your body. Where do you feel it? What does it feel like? Is it heavy or light? Tight or loose? Moving or still? Get curious about the physical sensations. Fifth, breathe normally. You don't need to do special breathing exercises. Just breathe. Notice your breath, but don't try to control it. Sixth, and this is the most important part, let the anxiety be there. Don't try to make it go away. Don't try to think positive thoughts to counter it. Don't distract yourself from it. Just let it exist. Stay with it. Observe it. And then seventh, continue with whatever you were doing or whatever you need to do. The anxiety doesn't have to go away first. You can carry it with you and do what matters anyway. This is the practice. This is how you break the loop. And I'm going to be honest with you, it takes practice. You're not going to do this perfectly the first time or the 10th time or maybe even the 100th time. You're going to forget sometimes. You're going to fall back into old patterns. That's okay, that's part of the process. The key is to keep coming back to this practice. Keep noticing when you're in the loop and keep choosing to respond differently. Every single time you do this, you're rewiring your brain. You're creating new neural pathways. You're teaching your amygdala that anxiety is not an emergency. And over time, this becomes easier. It becomes more automatic. The old loop gets weaker and the new pattern gets stronger. Now I want to address something that might be coming up for you. You might be thinking, but what if my anxiety is trying to tell me something important? What if there really is something I should be worried about? This is a good question, and it points to an important distinction between anxiety and genuine concern. Genuine concern is proportionate to the situation. If you're worried about an upcoming exam because you haven't studied, that's concern, and it's useful because it motivates you to study. But anxiety is disproportionate. It's when you've studied thoroughly and you're still convinced you're going to fail, and you can't stop thinking about it, and you're imagining all the terrible consequences. That's anxiety. Anxiety is not giving you useful information. It's just your threat detection system misfiring. And here's how you can tell the difference. Genuine concern leads to productive action. Anxiety leads to rumination and avoidance. Another thing people worry about is whether this approach means ignoring real problems in their life. Like if you're anxious about money because you actually don't have enough money to pay your bills, does sitting with the anxiety help? And the answer is yes, but not in the way you might think. Sitting with the anxiety doesn't solve the money problem directly. But when you're caught in the anxiety loop about money, your brain is in threat mode. You're not thinking clearly. You're catastrophizing. You're probably avoiding looking at your bank account or avoiding dealing with the problem because it makes you too anxious. But when you sit with the anxiety, when you let it be there without letting it control you, your prefrontal cortex can come back online. You can start thinking more clearly. You can actually look at the numbers. You can make a plan. You can take action. So dealing with your anxiety doesn't mean ignoring your problems. It actually helps you address your problems more effectively. Let me also say this. Nothing I'm sharing here is meant to replace professional help. If your anxiety is severe, if it's significantly impacting your ability to function in daily life, if you're having panic attacks, if you're experiencing depression alongside your anxiety, please talk to a therapist or doctor, Medication can be incredibly helpful for some people. Therapy, especially approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy, can give you additional tools and support. What I'm sharing with you here is based on these therapeutic approaches, but I'm giving you the condensed version, the core mechanism. Here's something else that's really powerful. Start living according to your values instead of according to your anxiety. Most people who struggle with anxiety make decisions based on what will minimize their anxiety in the moment. They avoid things that make them anxious. They say no to opportunities because they're worried about what might go wrong. They play it safe constantly. But when you make decisions based on anxiety, you end up with a very small life. You end up missing out on so many experiences and opportunities and connections. So instead, get clear on what actually matters to you. What do you value? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to create? And then start making decisions based on those values, even when it makes you anxious. If you value connection but social situations make you anxious, go to the social situations anyway. If you value growth but new challenges make you anxious, take on the challenges anyway. When you start living this way, something remarkable happens. Your life starts to expand. You start having experiences you would have missed. You start building confidence, because you keep proving to yourself that you can do hard things. I want to tell you something that might sound paradoxical, but is absolutely true. The way to have less anxiety is to be willing to have more anxiety. When you're willing to feel anxious, when you stop fighting it and resisting it and trying to avoid it, it loses its power. But when you're constantly trying to not feel anxious, when you're organizing your life around avoiding anxiety, you actually create more anxiety. Because now you're not just anxious about the original thing, you're also anxious about being anxious. You're anxious about situations that might make you anxious. Your world gets smaller and smaller as you avoid more and more things. But when you're willing to feel anxious, when you accept it as just another feeling you might experience, you can do anything. You can go anywhere. You can take risks. You can try new things. And ironically, the less you care about feeling anxious, the less anxious you actually feel. So let me bring this all together for you. The anxiety loop keeps you trapped because every time you avoid, distract, or seek reassurance, you reinforce the loop and teach your brain that anxiety is dangerous. To break the loop, you need to do the opposite. You need to sit with the anxiety, allow it to be there without reacting to it, and continue doing what matters to you anyway. This teaches your brain that anxiety is not dangerous, which recalibrates your threat detection system over time. You also need to change the story you tell yourself about anxiety. Stop identifying as an anxious person and start seeing yourself as a person who sometimes experiences anxiety. Practice cognitive diffusion by observing your thoughts rather than believing them automatically. Notice when you're in the loop. Pause before responding. Name what you're feeling. Locate it in your body. Breathe normally. Let the anxiety be there. And then continue with whatever you need to do. And here's what I really want you to understand. You are not broken. You are not fundamentally flawed. Your anxiety doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you have a sensitive alarm system, and you've been caught in a pattern that reinforces itself. But patterns can be changed. Neural pathways can be rewired. You have the ability to create new responses and new ways of relating to your internal experience. It's going to take practice and patience and self-compassion, but you absolutely can do this. Thousands of people have broken free from the anxiety loop using these principles, and you can too. Your anxiety doesn't have to be a life sentence. It doesn't have to control your decisions or limit your experiences or keep you from becoming the person you want to be. So start today. Start right now. The next time you feel anxiety arising, remember what I've told you. Pause, notice, name, locate, breathe, allow, continue. This is how you kill the anxiety loop. This is how you take your life back.